Reading from the Handbook of Folklore, Chapter 1, The Earth and the Sky. The records of prehistoric archaeology teach us that man's early progress over the world must have been very slow. At first unarmed and unclad, and subsequently, but very inadequately, armed and clad, he probably wandered along the banks of the rivers, surrounded by hills and mountains, by dense jungles, by fierce and often gigantic animals. He was exposed to heat and cold, to wind and weather, to storm and tempest. Forces outside himself and beyond his control caused him pain or pleasure, obliged him to move hither or thither for safety, shelter, or subsistence. Little wonder, then, that he should attribute a mysterious life and power not only to the heavenly bodies, the winds, the streams, or the waves, but even to silent, motionless, unchanging objects, such as mountains, crags, boulders, and pebbles. Nay, further, that he should think of them as being endowed with will and consciousness, or that finally he should suppose them to be the abodes or manifestations of being more powerful than himself. That such beliefs were actually held in amity, proved by the myths current among primitive and barbarous races. Traces of similar ideas may also be found in the folklore of civilized Europe, even down to the present day, as will be seen. Number one, every here and there in England, one may still meet with agricultural laborers who believe that stones grow. Suffolk farmers have been heard to state that the earth produces them spontaneously, and a piece of pudding stone or conglomerate has been pointed out as a mother stone, the parent of small pebbles. Particular stones are credited with supernormal powers. The Manx fishermen think that a white stone in that ballast brings ill luck to the fishing. Fossil belemnites, wherever found, are used to cure diseases or protect from lightning. Dr. Schilligmann speaks of a charm stones used by the Quaker tribe of Port Moresby, British New Guinea, immanent in which and in other natural objects is a virtue communicable under certain circumstances to other objects with which they are brought into mediate or intermediate contact. Either their rarity, their peculiar shape, naturally perforated stones, or some likeness of contour to the things they are to influence causes them to be known for good charms. A stone shaped like a seed yam, for instance, planted in a garden, will cause the yams to produce a good crop. Certain charm stones, he writes, as far as I know, these are always of quartz, are so highly charged with magical power that it is not considered safe for them to be touched with the hand, even by a man who is about to bring their power into play. One charm of this sort which I saw was kept in a small bamboo cylinder out of which it was lifted by means of a bone fork, the pointed end of which was thrust through a loosely netted covering which surrounded the stones. In the darkest corner of a Naga hut, Mr. T.C. Hodgson was once shown a war stone for giving victory in battle. It was a rough mass of conglomerate, kept folded in many wrappings, for if a woman were to see it, all its virtue would be lost. A menanthol or holded standing stone is or was held in Cornwall to have the power of curing disease. Rickety children are passed 9 times through the hole with the sun, from east to west and from right to left. A man stands on the one side, a woman on the other. A boy is passed from the woman to the man, a girl from the man to the woman. Scrofulous children are passed naked 3 times through the men and told near Penzance, and then drawn on the grass 3 times against the sun. The Leafield, or coronation stone of the ancient kings of Leinster, rode when the destined monarch stood on it. Recognizing him, it would seem much as the magnet turns to the pole or the divining rod to water. The holy stone of Mecca is the center of religious pilgrimage to all Islam. In the New Hebrides, large stones, as they naturally lie, have, says Dr. Codrington a high place among the sacred objects. Various tales are told of their origin. Some have individual names, others none. Some were spirits who have turned into stones. Some in the sea are men of old times turned into stones. Some were never anything but stones, but have a view connected with them. Some stones above the waterfall are called dwellers in the land, the native people of the stream, and these have all their names. They have much spiritual power, for they are in a way the bodily presentment of the spirits to whom the stream belongs. When men go eel fishing, they secure success by offering a bit of the first they catch upon the appropriate stone. Mr. Now Sir Everald in Thurn, speaking of the Indians of the Guzana, says that they believe that inanimate objects such as plants, stones, and rivers are compounded of body and spirits. And not only many rocks, but also many waterfalls, streams, and indeed material bodies of every sort are supposed to consist each of a body and spirit, as does a man, and that not all inanimate objects have this dual nature avowedly attributed to them is probably due only to the chance that while all such objects may at any time show signs of a spirit within them, this spirit has not yet been noticed in some cases. We can hardly expect to find the idea of personality in rocks and stones in so crude a form in Europe. But the belief that great standing stones are transformed human beings is common. The circle known as the Hurdlers in Cornwall is believed to be a party of Sabbath breakers turned to stones. The king and the whispering knights among the roll-right stones in Warwickshire would have conquered England could they have reached Long Compton. Listeners may hear them whispering together, and on certain nights they go down to the spring to drink. Number 3, we may next turn to the beliefs in superhuman inhabitants of crags and mountain tops. Mr. Aldridge, district commissioner in Sierra Leone, mentions a mountain known as the Mamba, an isolated peak which, standing out in bold relief against the surrounding country, naturally produces a very awe-inspiring effect that makes it an object of terror to the people, who believe it to be the dwelling place of the devil. Nothing would induce the people to cut a track through the dense brush at the foot of the mountain to enable Mr. Aldrich to ascend it. They would not even accept the present that I hoped would procure me a little bit of the rock, and they seemed uncommonly glad when I turned to depart without having aroused the anger of the local evil spirit. On the other side of the African continent, the Rev. J. Roscoe tells us that the natives of Uganda supposed that certain hills were possessed by the ghosts of wild animals. The people approached them with fear and were careful to appease the lion or leopard spirit when obliged to cross them. Neither the king nor any messenger from him might venture on any of these hills, so they were used as sanctuaries by persons who had incurred his displeasure. The gods of the Todas live amongst the peak of the Nilgiris. In Europe, the hilltops are usually the habitation of giants. Polyphemus lived on Mount Etna. Kedar Idris in Wallace is the giant's chair. The wonderful basaltic rocks on the north coast of Ireland are the giant's causeway. In other cases, the devil owns such places. We have the devil's chimney at Cheltenham, the Devil's Dyke on the Downs above Britain. In these groups of examples, culled from hundreds that might be adduced from all parts of the world, we get the 3 stages of varieties of beliefs glanced at in the opening paragraphs of this chapter. The first group of beliefs cited above exhibits the mental attitudes distinguished by Dr. R. Merritt, threshold of religion, as animatism, namely the attribution of life and personality, but not of a separate or apparitional soul to what for us are inanimate objects, such as mountains, stones, or rocks, or the ascription to such objects of mysterious or compelling power, termed by Mr. Van Gennep dynamism. In the two latter groups, we are confronted with the doctrine of animism or the belief in spiritual beings pervading nature, so luminously expounded by Professor Sir E.B. Taylor in Primitive Culture. In group 2, we have spirit conceived of as immanent in matter. The rock or stream is the embodiment or manifestation of a spirit. In group 3, the rock, crag, mountain, or other inanimate object is the habitation of spirits, more or less separable from their dwelling place and visible, if at all, in other shapes. These two forms of animistic belief must not be confounded. The native terms for the several kinds of spiritual beings locally recognized should be used whenever possible, and when translation is necessary, the word spirit is best restricted to the spirit embodied in matter. And the separable being, capable of appearing apart from his or her habitation, may be distinguished as the local demon or genius loci, or even as a godling. Not that the collector should classify his notes under the several headings of animatism, animism, etc., but that he should endeavor to grasp and express the native thought with as much precision as possible. The following examples of beliefs about springs, rivers, and the heavenly bodies exhibit the same ideas and show, moreover, how the conception of a living and powerful personality, transcending human personality and power, may overshadow the more analytic notion of a being compounded of body and spirit. A man was drowned in the Derbyshire Derwent in January 1904. He didn't know, daren't, commented an old neighbor with a triumphant tone in her voice. He said it were naught but a brook, but Darrant got him. They never saw his head, he threw his arms up, but Darrant wouldn't let him go. It's a sad pity, 7 children, but he shouldn't have made so light of Darrant. He knows now, not but a brook. He knows now. She talked of the river as if it were a living personage or deity. Wrote the narrator. I could almost imagine the next step would be to take it offering. The reverence paid to the Ganges throughout northern India and the rites performed on its banks are too well known to need more than a mention here. Midsummer Day, says Dr. Westermark, the people of the Andra, a district of Morocco, bathe in the sea or rivers, for on that day all water is endowed with baraka, magic energy or benign virtue, which removes sickness or misfortune. They also bathe their animals. We have in the British Isles numerous healing wells to which sick persons resort for cure and hang rags from their clothing on the surrounding bushes. Wishing wells into which the votaries drop pins and pebbles desiring boons, and holy wells consecrated to some saint, generally a local saint. Wells is full of stories of spectral ladies, white, black, grey, and green, who appear beside wells, give mysterious hints of hidden treasure and vanish. The Lady of the Van Pool in South Wales is a being of a more material type. She was the ancestress of a long line of distinguished physicians whose descendants are by no means yet extinct. She came out of the lake and returned thither when her human husband broke the marriage compact. She is still said to appear at Lamastide gliding over the surface of the pool, and not many years ago, people used to go to the pool at the season of the hope of catching sight of her. The conception of the treacherous mermaid, the fair pretty maid with a comb and a glass in her hand, is widely spread. The Lorelei of the Rhine will occur to every reader. English water demons were more repulsive. Jenny Greenteeth lurked under the weeds of stagnant pools in Shropshire and Lancashire and dragged in unwary children. Inland mermaids threatened floods if offered by projects of drainage. The Tees, the Screen, the Ribble, and many other rivers have each a spirit, who in popular belief demands human victims. Sometimes the water demon appears in animal form as the Kelpie, water horse or water bull of Celtic regions. The man in the moon or a woman in the moon is known everywhere in Europe, and the hair is the moon is as familiar in the Far East. People in England bow to the new moon or turn their money to show it to her the first time of seeing her. It is very unlucky to see the new moon through glass, and children are told that it is wicked to point the finger at the moon or try to count the stars. A girl in Berkshire was said to have been struck dead after doing so. On the continent of Europe, the Magyars forbid sweeping toward the sun. A girl who throws the sweepings in the direction of the sun will never be married. A married woman may not appear in face of the sun with uncovered head. The ancient Greeks held that at eclipses the heavenly bodies were threatened by demons, and they shook brass and iron to drive the demons away. Even today, in Greece, the proper way to stop an eclipse of the moon is to cry out, I see you. Similar beliefs and practices survive in Judea and elsewhere. Among the Ojibways of North America, Peter Jones himself, and Ojibwe tells us that the sun, moon, and stars are adored as gods. At the rising of the sun, the old chiefs and warriors chant their hymns of praise to welcome his return, and at his going thank him for the blessing of light and heat during the day. When a visible eclipse of the sun takes place, the poor Indians are thrown into the greatest alarm. They call it the sun's dying and suppose that he actually dies. In order to assist in bringing him to light again, they stick coals of fire on the points of their arrows and shoot them upwards into the air, that by these means the expiring sun may be reanimated and rekindled. I will remember when I was a little boy being told by our aged people that I must never point my finger at the moon, for if I did, she would consider it an insult and instantly bite it off. The sun dance is the great annual religious solemnity of the Blackfeet Indians. Vows made to the sun in times of trouble or danger are then paid, often at the cost of severe torture to the vow makers. Offerings are made, prayers uttered, and consecrated food shared by the participants. The great sun god is our father, said Mad Wolf, the greatest orator of the Blackfeet, in dismissing the tribe when the sun dance was over. He is kind, for he makes the trees to bud and the grass to become green in the springtime. He gave the people good hearts that they also might be kind and help each other. It will not escape the notice of an observant reader that the European beliefs on these subjects are of similar quality, indeed are sometimes identical with those of uncivilized peoples, always expecting the actual deification of the heavenly bodies or other material objects, an idea which naturally is no longer to be met with here. The questions given in the appendix cover many points which it is not possible to develop in the text. See page number 302.